welcome to a brand new episode of CNBC-TV18 and Qualcomm present the 5G opportunity. Private 5G networks are on the cusp of taking off around the world. The concept of enterprise-owned and enterprise-focused cellular networks is quickly gaining popularity as the combination of the performance improvements of 5G networks and the control and security that enterprises need is potentially too good to pass up. IoT, IIoT, VoIP, and supporting a massive number of remote sites are just few of the hardships today's enterprise networks face. When it comes to the healthcare sector, private 5G can offer an integrated, controllable, organization-wide approach to networking. This allows healthcare organizations to evolve their network quickly and securely, without losing existing investments in technology or assets to deliver better communication to its staff and care its patients. Joining us now on the show is Shri R.S. Sharma, CEO of the National Health Authority, to speak on how the revolutionary use of 5G has the potential to transform how healthcare is delivered in India.
Thank you, Rima, and hello, friends. I would like to thank CNBC-TV18 for inviting me to speak on the 5G opportunity. Having been the telecom regulator for nearly 5 years, telecom is one of the industries I am always passionate to talk about. As I am now driving the digitization in the health sector, I would like to focus my keynote today on the intersection of these two industries, on 5G opportunities in health. Owing to the foundational layer of JAM, Janadhan, Aadhaar and mobile, we have seen digitization reach the grassroots levels of our country, with young girls and boys watching movies on their smartphones in urban and rural areas alike. We have over 800 million internet connections in India, with one of the highest data consumption rates of 17 GB per user per month. It is with the advent of 4G technology and low-cost data that we have been able to achieve this feat. As we all know, 5G has got basically three important characteristics which distinguishes it from the earlier versions of technologies. The first is very high throughput, which means we can have terabytes of data being transmitted through the network. Second is that we have machine-to-machine communication. And the third is very low latency. All these three capabilities together create many potential use cases. This technology available in the hands of billion people will transform the way we do things. Moving on to the topic of healthcare in our country, I would first like to talk about the Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission, popularly known as ABDM. Under ABDM, we are building digital highways for health that will connect all the stakeholders, including citizens, health providers, and enablers, and policymakers. Verified registries and dedicated digital protocols for health would ensure interoperability and accessibility for all. Some of the key building blocks of ABDM include Aadhaar number or Ayushman Bharat Health Account number, which is a unique number assigned to each citizen to help them have a unique identity across all digital health systems in the country. The second one is verified registries, which include healthcare professional registries and health facility registry and drug registry. Personal health records or PHR are paperless records with federated storage for the creation of longitudinal health history of citizens that could be shared with their consent. Unified Health Interface or UHI is a digital health protocol to search, discover, book and avail various healthcare services, including telemedicine. Health Claims Exchange is a digital health protocol for seamless health insurance processing, connecting all the payers and providers. Internet connectivity would be crucial for various digital health services such as telemedicine and longitudinal health record sharing. However, to go a step further, to allow healthcare services to be driven through technology remotely, 5G would play an instrumental role. The IoT or the Internet of Things would see a tectonic shift with the 5G technology, as it would allow a faster transmission of multiple gigabytes of data per second. Clubbed with IoT and augmented and virtual reality, a 5G internet network would extend the applications of digital health beyond telemedicine to secondary and tertiary care through real-time monitoring, remote diagnostics, and remote surgeries. Health monitoring through connected medical devices would generate real-time data about patients that providers can use to improve health outcomes. At scale, analytics applied to these massive volumes of patient data could lead to new or improved treatments. To improve diagnostic capabilities, 5G could increase access to essential data and expedite the process of identifying and treating certain conditions. This revolutionary use of 5G has the potential to transform how future healthcare is delivered, enabling crucial efficiencies and reducing the need for some patients to visit hospitals. 5G could meet data-intense millisecond latency requirements necessary for telesurgery, allowing doctors to remotely operate responsive and high-precision surgical robots. I recently saw some brilliant demo of augmented reality lenses that allowed healthcare professionals to juxtapose diagnostic imaging on patients in real time, both explain medical diagnostic better and perform procedures with more accuracy. Hopefully, with COVID-19 in our hindsight, the health sector is rightly placed for a digital revolution. And the 5G technology couldn't have come in at a better time to make a lot of these much talked about innovations a reality at a scale. Sky is the limit for the applications of this 5G opportunity in health, with a democratized access to such a revolutionary technology enabled by the digital public goods made available through ABDM. I believe the future of digital health is one filled with the endless possibilities. Thank you very much.
Regardless of the industry, the drive for digital transformation of operations and experience enabled by technologies like private 5G is in full force. The dedicated, extensible, enterprise-focused nature of private 5G network, providing control and lower cost, along with performance enhancements, is what will transform the industry. It's time for us to take a very short break, but stay tuned, as on the other side, we have a very interesting panel discussion lined up. Welcome back to this special episode of CNBC TV18 and Qualcomm present the 5G opportunity. A private 5G network enables enterprises to dedicate bandwidth for ultra-reliable, low-latency use cases such as robotics, industrial IoT, with control over data, security, and networks. It can also be tailored for specific industry and business requirements. So what are the use cases for 5G private networks for enterprises in India? What are the challenges going ahead? To discuss this and much more, we are now joined by an esteemed panel of guests. We have with us Manish Tripathi, Vice President, Engineering at Qualcomm Technologies, Ms. Mrinalini Lakshmi Narayanan, Global Executive Director, Digital Industry Solutions, IoT, AI, X-Reality, 5G at Ingram Micro, Munish Chabra, Head Mobility Software and Services Business at Radisys, and Bijoy Pankajakshan, EVP, Chief Technology and Strategy Officer at Mabiner. Thank you very much for joining us, and let's get this started. Manish, my first question to you is, what are the benefits of 5G private networks and how are they facilitating digital transformation?
Thank you, Rima. That's a great question to get this conversation started. So 5G technology, as we all know, brings in much higher data rates, much lower latencies, and a lot more efficiency and capacity into the wireless networks. Which translates into a much more enhanced user experience for the millions of users who have already access to 5G networks. And they're able to do a lot more things with the same devices that they're used to and get a better experience with things like video streaming, playing online games, live streaming, and so on. So similar benefits translate to 5G private networks as well. And if you look at enterprises and various verticals in the industry, there's a lot of use cases that require that extra performance, or more importantly, require that consistency and reliability of performance, which a 5G network can deliver. So this is what 5G is bringing to the ecosystem, to the industry, and it will help a lot of the companies really accelerate their path to digital transformation.
Mrinalini, why is private 5G considered a new paradigm for network operators and enterprises?
Thank you, Rima, for this question. I think there's going to be a major change that is going to happen specifically with 5G. There are a lot of different players that are coming into 5G. So obviously you do have the network operators who are providing private 5G networks. You are also going to have SIs who are going to be able to, system integrators who are going to be able to provide the private 5G network and provide managed services. You have managed services vendors who have been doing IT technology so far, wireless networks for in case of IT, and they are also getting into this arena and ready to jump into the providing the same services for the private 5G network. So you would see a major change happening. You're going to have a lot more players, specifically with private 5G coming into play. The enterprises, on the other hand, are all expanding significantly. They are looking at how they can adopt these new technologies and drive their businesses faster and quicker and provide more value for their customer base. And that is actually going to significantly change the way they look at networking and network technologies and devices that they are going to buy to ensure they are all future-proof to 5G, because as time progresses, they're going to start adopting 5G and private 5G technology.
Munish, and coming to you, what are the key factors influencing private 5G network deployment models across sectors?
Thank you, Rima. This is a very interesting question. I would say let's start from the basics first. What is required to set up, let's say, 5G networks today? The first and foremost is the spectrum. So the way the spectrum distribution has to happen for private 5G has to come across as ease of getting spectrum. Then the second thing is also around from the cost of building these networks. The business case for private 5G is going to be much different than the commercial operator networks. So the cost of setting up these networks and also in terms of monitoring and managing these networks has to be much affordable compared to our regular networks. And also, I would say the device ecosystem also needs to step up in terms of really getting cost-effective CPEs and things on those lines. Then on the technology side, I would say the ease of deployment and manageability will play a very key role, because we cannot expect the private 5G networks where they're deployed, everybody to be radio savvy. So they have to become more easy in terms of Wi-Fi-like kind of networks, and a lot of automation, plug and play kind of functionality needs to be built into these, I would say, converting the technology into real use cases for private 5G.
Bijoy wanted to understand how businesses can realize their true potential using private 5G networks.
Thank you, Rima, for the question. I think the previous panelists actually talked about the benefits of 5G. So from realizing the true values of this, I would look at it from the first aspect being the ability to run as a disaggregated network in different cloud environments. So today, if you look at where the adoption is with private networks, a big portion of it is in places like mining industry. So this is one place where you need isolated networks without connectivity back to central locations. So that's one model of deployment. Now the case could be a hybrid deployment where some of the enterprise has certain functions where the rest is running in a cloud environment, which could be even a hyperscaler environment. There's a lot of debate also about the true value of open RAN-based deployments in enterprise. Now, if the TCO is good, then the enterprise would actually prefer an open RAN-based deployment because it gives them the flexibility to swap out vendors in future and do migration and new services much faster. It's also, to one of the panelists who mentioned, it's actually opening up the ecosystem as well to more number of system integrators to play in, as well as the ability to actually have an open silicon-based infrastructure.
So Manish, just to take that point forward, what would you say are the biggest opportunities for 5G private network acceleration this coming year? What is the industry doing to realize the potential?
And as Qualcomm, we're really excited about this in terms of some of the solutions we are bringing to the industry. So there were things that were mentioned, like ease of deployment or different requirements from the customer in terms of the spectrum scenarios that they might have to support. What we want to provide to the customers is the ability to deploy multi-vendor solutions so that they can pick and choose what works the best for a given use case, for a given vertical that they're trying to address, and be able to meet their requirements in the best possible manner. Now, on top of all of this, what is also going to be very important is that there is a very simple and easy way to manage the complexity of all of these vendors. And that's where earlier this year, we had announced the acquisition of Cellwise, which allows us to bring a platform to the industry where we can simplify the management of these private networks, provide a single view into multi-vendor scenarios that might be there, and enable a lot of automation in there so that, again, from a deployment perspective, these networks become as easy to deploy as a Wi-Fi network.
Bijoy, talking about the transportation sector in particular, what are the top use cases for a private 5G network? What are the opportunities and the potential which we can tap into?
So we talked about the 5G in general, but if we try to focus on just the transportation sector, you could just look at logistics as one area of transportation-based enhancement. And with 5G-based connectivity, you now have the capability to track goods usage at every portion of the logistics cycle and actually streamline the logistics process as well. What enables you to do is have a more efficient system. If we look at the higher bandwidth capabilities that 5G brings, then you can have a lot more of the camera information that's backhauled, which leads to better port security. Same thing with having lower latency. You could have forklift that's actually implemented within the transportation sector. Another area that we've been looking at Mavenir is if you look at the different transport modes that are available, whether it be through rail, through sea, or air, and having 5G as a connectivity, being able to integrate that into a common mobility as a service platform actually opens up the user to many different cases. So, for example, with this capability, you could now have platforms and sensor systems that are more monitored closely, which gives you a better understanding of how the user population is using under different mobility scenarios.
Mrinalini, supply chain is another high potential use case for private 5G. How is 5G transforming the way organizations help track from order to delivery? What use cases do you see for the sector?
This is really exciting for us as Intermicro because Intermicro has more than 189 warehouses, service support centers all over the world. And we are constantly trying to serve the demand of shipping for our customers as quickly as possible. Starting from the fact that more than 51% of the labor force in the warehouse spends a lot of time walking, more than 51% of the time walking. We believe that there is a huge opportunity for us to try to optimize some of the time. So we are continuously looking at mobility use cases that can actually help us with that. We have brought in, obviously, the scanning devices. I think there was a mention about scanning devices in the logistics space. Scanning devices are used extensively from put away, sorting, picking, packaging, as well as shipping within the warehouse, across the whole process within the warehouse. So there is a huge opportunity for us to leverage the scanning technology, and many of these scanning technologies are adopting 5G chipsets in them. So we have tested some of that. A lot of other devices get used within the warehouse, which is basically laptops, tablets for a lot of different operations that are done, and therefore OT is significantly adopting newer and newer devices, and many of these devices are coming out with 5G chipsets in them. So we do want to leverage that technology within the warehouse. Therefore, having a 5G network is very critical.
Manish, beyond the ones that we just discussed, there is still a lot of verticals that come up as beneficiaries of private network innovation in India. Which verticals do you see the most interest in?
Yeah, Rima, we see interest in a lot of verticals, and I'll just touch upon a few of them. So warehouse was already mentioned earlier. The other verticals we see interest in is manufacturing. where there's a lot of need around control and command and automation, where there's need for low latencies, high reliability. And we have done extensive trials in Europe to show how 5G can solve some of the challenges there. Then you look at oil and gas as the next one, where we see a lot of interest. They have very different needs. The environment is different. You're typically out where typical infrastructures that we are used to in terms of connectivity are not there. You're trying to cover larger distances. So again, that's where 5G can help realize a lot of the use cases, whether they're trying to connect security cameras or even drones for inspections or handheld devices. So all of those things can be enabled there, and we're seeing good interest there as well.
Bijoy, how is the rise of private 5G networks accelerating the adoption of Industry 4.0?
It's a good question, because first to define Industry 4.0, it's the digital transformation of the physical infrastructure within a factory floor. So effectively what you're doing is you're using all the new tools that are available, be it big data analytics, automation, which was mentioned earlier, tools that AI ML brings in to actually do processes much more efficiently. And where 5G as a technology could help here versus previous fragmented technologies and connectivity is in terms of providing better security and control, in terms of providing better reliability and scalability of the solution. It comes with lower latency, of course, and higher bandwidth, which also leads to capabilities to do handovers much more smoothly as opposed to a Wi-Fi based deployment. And all of this also leads to higher coverage. The goal is to actually have a system which can transform the industry, which is where the Industry 4.0 transformation comes in, at lower cost, with better worker safety. And the metrics by which you would mention this, by which you would actually measure this, is not just the TCO calculations, but it can be measures as simple as, is the worker safety enhanced in this whole transformation?
Munish, a collaboration of users, providers, system integrators as partners is essential to unlocking the huge potential of private 5G networks. What measures need to be taken in this respect?
Thank you. This is a very interesting question. I would say the first and foremost to start with would be standardizations and sector-led standardizations or the vertical-led standardizations. In fact, this is a very key item for Radis in terms of we have been contributing into various standards and starting with something like 5G ACIA, which is primarily leading the industrial use cases for the standardizations. And that's where the industry leaders in each verticals need to really create or promote their business case, and then they need to invest to start with, maybe starting with more like funding through POCs and creating some test beds and create this ecosystem which will solve the problem for their particular vertical.
Well, that's all the time we have for you on the show today. A big thank you to all our guests for joining us in this special discussion. With that, it's a wrap on this show. Thank you for watching.